See 23 people here. That's great. So my name's Professor Levy. Hopefully you've seen some of the emails from me. I'm going to go over some of that stuff again, just in case people haven't seen it. But generally speaking, my goal here is to run, as normal of a class as we possibly can, even in these remote settings. I have a document camera. My notes lend themselves to this remote setting pretty well. And if you sort of take it seriously the way that I hope you will, then we can treat this very much like a normal class. And my hope is that the Friday sessions will be beneficial just to be in the same room with each other and work through some issues, and it also just gives a good setting and environment to do quizzes and things like that. And so that's sort of our general goal. What I'm going to do today is run you through the general first day things, sort of outline the course. And I would actually like to start on some notes today. And so we're going to jump right in. Feel free to stop me at any time with any questions. You're welcome to use the chat or just, unmute yourself or whatever. Anyone have any questions before we get started? I'm going to share my screen in just a second here, unless someone wants to ask a question. All right, cool. So I'm sharing my screen. Just make sure sometimes my speakers don't work, and sometimes people try to ask questions and I don't hear them because my speakers aren't working. Let me just make sure that they're working. They appear to be working. Okay, cool. Okay, so I'm sharing my screen. Everything's going to be run through our Blackboard course. I usually run my courses through Blackboard in general, even the ones in person. There's lots of good stuff in here. So if you had me before, you're probably familiar with some of these things, but I'm also changing some things up this semester. So, focus in and let me know if you have any questions. So when you get to our Blackboard page, it looks like this. The left-hand navigation sort of has a lot of different links there, and I'm going to run you through. Let me just list them each right now. So announcements is where, that's where I send emails and things like that. So the announcements we've seen previously over the last couple of days where you were responding to polls, all that stuff is here. So if you ever need to, you can't find it in your email, something you can always check right there. The syllabus is in two locations. It's on the syllabus tab here, of course. If you go there, the syllabus will be there, but it's also inside course documents. And so course documents, this next tab, has most of the things we want for the course. I try to keep everything in that one place in terms of like me passing things out to you, so you don't have to click around too much. So if you go to course documents, it's got most of the things for the semester. It's got our syllabus, it's got our weekly schedule, it's got a questionnaire I'm going to ask you to fill out, it's got all of our course notes, it's got the course, the entire semester course schedule. I will post finished notes in this folder. It's got information about tutoring, our textbook, quizzes, test topics, right? So everything is, you can see for the most part, is going to be in this course documents area. I'm going to be regularly updating it. As I mentioned, every class I'm going to post notes in there. Every week I'll update the weekly schedule. Anytime I'm sort of trying to get you some material, it's going to be through course documents. Let me go ahead and run through the syllabus because that'll lead to some of these things on the left-hand navigation page. So like the YouTube playlist, our Google Meet link, all these kind of things are described in the syllabus. So let me just open that up and just point out a few things about it. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on the syllabus because one of the things that we're going to do this week actually is a syllabus quiz. So we will have a syllabus quiz on Friday, and I'm going to ask you to look through the syllabus and answer some questions. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this, but I do want to point out a couple things. One thing is our textbook. So our textbook is a free digital textbook that is available online here. So if you go back to our course documents page, the textbook is one of the things in here, textbook right here. So you can just download that. It says you can purchase hard copies in the bookstore for 20 bucks. I think I looked the other day and they're actually more expensive than that. So you can purchase a hard copy if you really want one, but know that it's not 100% necessary. I'm not going to assign problems out of it. It's usually just good as a reference in addition to what I tell you. Now, if you're a math major or you're going to take Calc 2 or Calc 3, you might want to buy the hard copy because we use the same textbook for all those classes. But if you're trying to save money or you just want to, see how things go, you could just download this digital copy and then let me know, or you think about whether or not you want the hard copy. I just want to sort of talk quickly about the grade breakdown as well. Again, you'll think about some of this in part of the quiz, but we're basically going to have weekly homework. Weekly homework is going to be due on Wednesdays at midnight. Excuse me, and that's going to be through web work, which I'll show you in a minute. In addition to that, we'll have a weekly quiz. So if you've ever had a class with me before, I do lots of usually if it's an in-person class, it's every other period I'll do a quiz, or on these remote classes, I try to do it once a week. And they're open note quizzes. They're not the kind of thing that should be stressing you out. They're not the kind of thing that you should spend a ton of time preparing for. The idea behind the quizzes is a lot of the work that you do in this class, you do on your own, right? You're working. Obviously, where you are right now, you'll be sitting there writing notes down. When you do the homework, you'll be working through them yourself online. And so the quizzes are my way to sort of see where you're at with respect to the material, show you the kind of questions I think are important, right, and give you feedback on your work before test time comes. And so we're going to have these weekly quizzes, but again, they're open notes. Okay, so you don't have to spend a bunch of time studying. You just need to make sure your notes are organized and that you have your notes available when we take the quiz. They're sort of like check-ins to see where you're at, not seeing if you've mastered the material yet. Tests or exams are where I think about more mastering the material. And so you can see here, zoom in a little bit, we'll have three sort of in-class tests. Those are going to be closed notes, although I'll probably allow you to bring some, like a note card or something into those. And that's really where I'm sort of thinking or evaluating how well do you know this stuff. Can you do this stuff with just a little bit of reference material? And so there'll be 3 of those that'll be weighted to 40% of your grade. And then we'll have a final exam at the end of the semester. That'll, again, be in person, and that'll be 25% of your final grade. The thing you'll notice here, too, is it says quizzes/attendance. And so I'm going to take attendance. Let me just sort of scroll down to that. I sort of mentioned it a second ago, but I want to be clear about what attendance means to me. So, attendance is obviously coming to class. And so you're here, that's great. But to me, it's a little bit more than just coming to these remote sessions. It's showing me that you're participating in them. And so everyone's going to start with 13 out of 10 on their attendance score, right? So you actually start out with some bonus points that can go towards other things in the class. And every time you sort of fail to meet the attendance grade, it'll just go down by 1 point. Now, it's really easy to make the attendance grade. You just have to come to class on Fridays. If you just come to class on Fridays, you'll get the point. On these remote sessions, again, I'm looking for you to participate. And so that, to me, means just either A, having your camera off so I can see you're actually, on, so I can see you're actually here and writing notes. Or if you really don't want to turn your camera on, if you're someone who doesn't want to for whatever reason, that's okay. I'm going to be flexible there, but I need to know that you're there. And so it involves then participating in some way by asking a question or answering a question, or again, just showing me that there's someone behind the picture there. And the reason I'm doing this is because last semester I ran all my classes fully online. Some of you guys were in those classes, and for a lot of people, they went perfectly fine. But for, a good portion of my classes, much more than I'm used to seeing, there was just very little engagement, people putting things off and procrastinating. And so I'm trying to make it more like a normal class, more, have you guys come regularly, try to help you and check in more often. And so, again, that involves either, to me, when you're here in this remote setting, either having your camera on or participating in some way. Just, again, to show me you're there, show me that you're staying up with things. And again, that's not, it's because I care. And in the past, I see that when people sort of aren't engaged and don't come to class and sort of fall behind, that snowballs really quickly. And so I'm trying to avoid sort of 3 weeks down the line, people trying to catch up and stuff like that, and just start right off with keeping people on task. That's my goal. Okay, questions so far? I'm going to switch back to Blackboard, but that's sort of like the general outline, I think, of expectations, attendance, how your grade's going to be broken down. There's a few other things in here, but let's see. I think I heard the chat just beep. Pop over here. I thought I heard the chat, but I don't see a message in there.
I just raised my hand on this thing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Is the final exam cumulative?
The final exam will be, cumulative. Yep. And again, usually, I mean, in the past on these tests, I generally don't do like note card things, let people bring material in this remote setting. And in recent years, I've become softer or whatever. And I'll probably let you bring some reference material. But yes, the final exam is sort of like a, what did you learn during the semester cumulative situation. Other thoughts or questions before we keep going? Thank you for that question.
I have one.
Yep.
You mentioned in an email something about the in-person classes being at 11, but on my schedule it says 12:30.
Yeah, so there's two sections technically on Friday to cut down on the number of people in the room and whatever. So half the people are at 11, the other half are at 12:30. And ask that you stick to your section again for capacity reasons. Note that the room recently changed too. So if you had wrote down the room like a week or two ago, it said somewhere in Thompson. But as you see, I updated the syllabus here. The in-person room is going to be in Percival 108. That's one of those new rooms in Percival that has like the U-shaped thing. I switched over to that one because I looked at the rooms and it just looked like it was easier to distance in that room. There were sort of different tiers. It just seemed like a better classroom for the situation. So that's where it's going to be. And I'll send a reminder about that just in case on Friday. But yeah, you can see here, there's two sections. One's at 11, one's at 12:30. Other thoughts? Other things I can clarify so far? Okay, let me pop back over to Blackboard here and just run through the things that you'll need to know. So the weekly schedule, this thing at the top here, I fully understand that these online situations can be very confusing in terms of like knowing what I'm supposed to be doing and where is the material that I need to be accessing. I've recently took an online class as part of like a faculty development thing, and I had some of those very same thoughts. It was eye-opening to me because, you have this feeling like, even if you're trying, right? Am I seeing everything I need to be seeing? Like, did I do everything I'm supposed to do? There's that feeling, right? So I'm trying to cut down on that feeling or give you something to just focus on every week using this weekly schedule. So this weekly schedule, I'm going to update every week, every Monday, and it sort of hones in on what you should be focusing on in this given week. Now, there's the full schedule. So you can see this course schedule for the entire semester. That sort of gives you every week. But that might change a little bit, right? Things we fall behind, that might alter, right? If we push due dates back, it might change. And so this weekly schedule is really focusing in on what's going on this week, what should you be doing this week, what is due this week, and I usually preview like what's coming up next week in case there's things that you need to prepare for. Like if there's a test next week, it would say that on the schedule. And so, I just had a couple like general notes, like how people are successful in the class, what you should be thinking about, where we meet in person. And so these are just like, I'll try to update these points every week with just like important things. There's like the homework for the given week, like what you should be doing this week that is important. And usually it'll just be one bullet point, but this first week there's a couple like busy work type things to do. And so we are going to have homework due on Wednesday night, our first orientation set. I'm going to ask you to print the blank course notes. I'll talk about that in a minute. I'm going to ask you to fill out a questionnaire that's going to help me get to know you a little bit. And I would really strongly encourage you to stop by office hours for this sometime in the first couple weeks, especially if you're someone right now who's watching this video later and you're not in person. I'm going to sort of require you to come chat with me at some time in the next couple weeks because I really want to make sure everyone's on task. And then it sort of just says like, here are the topics for the week, tells about what homework's due, when it's due, right? If there's a quiz, I'll put it here. And there's some important links at the bottom here as well. So this document, like I said, is going to update every week. It's what you should just kind of focus in on a week-to-week basis to think about what you're doing. Okay, let's talk about the blank course notes because that's come up a couple times, and then we'll look at web work as well. So the blank course notes, you can see it says right here, Spring 2021 blank course notes. This is the document that contains all the notes for the most part for the semester. There might be a couple things that I hand out here or there, but you can see it's 74 pages. This covers just about everything we're gonna do. I've got a copy of it right in front of me right now. My hope is to start that as soon as we finish this intro stuff. And so you should print this at some point. Yes, it's long. It's 74 pages. If you printed it in the Fitchburg State Library, for example, it would be free because everyone gets $20 of printing every year. But even if you paid for it there, I think it's like $2. If you choose to print it at home on your own printer, that's fine. But maybe you would want to like do it black and white and speed printing or something like that, so it doesn't eat up all your ink. But you can kind of think about this as instead of buying a notebook or something, this is going to be all the notes that we're going to have. But it also means you need to keep it organized, right? You don't want to have 74 pieces of loose leaf paper just scattered around your house or something, right? You want to have that like in a notebook, in a binder, in a folder, somewhere to keep them in order. If you just stay organized in this course, it's like half the battle, I really think. So, I'm going to start on these notes today. And so the sooner you print these, the less you'll have to do in terms of writing. And the reason I do these notes, if you've taken a class with me, you're familiar with it, but I like doing this because you don't have to write this stuff down if you're the student, right? Instead of like writing all these definitions and these practice problems and stuff, it's just already written for you on the page. And then we just read through it and we talk about what it means and we do examples and, gives more time for questions and stuff like that. So the idea is to free up some of the note taking on your end to, again, not so you can like fall asleep or something, but so you can actually think about what's going on and actively engage. That's the goal. Do some people use it as an excuse to fall asleep during class? Yes. Are those people often successful in the class? Not often. So, it's up to you and how serious you take it. So that's, that's on this thing's, this thing that says print blank course notes. That's one of the homeworks. That's this document. The other thing you should know is the web work. So on the side of the page here, there's all these different links. There's a YouTube playlist. If I click that link, it'll open up where I'm going to post all these videos. So this class is being recorded right now. I'll post it to this YouTube playlist once we're finished. And you can see as it opens up, there's already a few things in there to help you get started. You're going to have to learn how to scan things. Here's a video about how to do that. We'll talk more about that on Wednesday, actually. There's a little video about how to get tutoring at Fitchburg State. And then we're going to submit all of our documents through Gradescope. And so there's a video about that too. We'll talk about Gradescope and scanning on Wednesday, though. I don't want to spend too much time today on these super boring things. This Google Meet link is this video right here. So if I click this link right here, it takes us to this session, right? So you can just bookmark this session. I'm going to use the same link for everything. Every time we meet during class, every office hour is going to be this link. So just bookmark it as Calc I or whatever, my link, and you'll never have to go back here. But if you lose it, it's up here on Blackboard. WebWork's where we're doing our homework. So if you click that WebWork link, it sort of takes you to this thing that describes how to do online homework. And before I sort of take you to the site, let me just say that online homework, the point of this online homework is to give you practice so you can be successful on tests and quizzes. Okay, it's not meant to sort of waste your time or give you some busy work that you can sort of just like look up answers or cheat through. You certainly could look up answers online or use calculators and things like that, but that's not the point, right? The point is just to get some practice so you can do well on quizzes. And so with that in mind, the quizzes are open notes to encourage you to write your answers down. Please write your answers down so that you can study from them and use them on quizzes. Right? That's super important. When you come into the site, you'll notice that there's already 2 homework assignments due. Let me just show you what it would look like if you came in. Let me click on one of your names here. Let me just pretend to be a student. This is what it'll look like when you log in, and you can see there's already 2 things posted. So this orientation thing you can see is due Wednesday at midnight, this Wednesday. This is just a practice problem set. There's some practice math in there, but it's mostly just a practice to teach you how to use the site. And then the first actual math one you can see is due next week at midnight. When you go in here, you'll notice that you have unlimited attempts to answer the questions. So it's not about like answering it right the first time. It's about trying things and eventually getting it right, and then having a nice solution to study from. And then if you go into a particular problem, I'll just point out that there's a button that lets you ask me a question. So if you wanted to email me, you can click the email instructor button down here, and you could write me a question in this little note here. You can see it's going to send it to my email, and it'll link me directly to your question. So this is the easiest way to get help from me via your homework. If you send me a message separately, it's going to be very challenging for me to find your specific question. If you just link me to your question by pressing this button, I'll be able to help you very quickly. And again, the point here is to get some good practice so that you can have nice things to study from and learn the material. Okay, I can't stress that enough. You can look up answers on websites and calculators and things. But again, if you do that and you don't write anything down, it's like you didn't even do it at all, right? Like that's not even the point, and it's just going to end up hurting you. So I try to limit the number of questions, the ones that I think are really important. I try not to dump too many on you, but my expectation is that you're actually working through those problems. Okay, and in class, I'm happy to help you with that stuff, and outside of class as well. All right, let's keep going. You can see here this thing called Slack channel. So that's an external app that if you click this link, it'll ask you to join our discussion, basically. And so I'm thinking about this. Now let me just go ahead and open it. This channel as being a way to talk to each other and talk to me in like a texty kind of way, right? So if you have questions about homework, or you want to start a study group, or you want to see if anyone else is working on the homework and maybe you could like team up and work on it or something, you could come here and just ask some general questions to the class. And that's sort of the goal here is when I'm thinking about that link. And I can see a couple of you guys have already joined it. That's great. Again, there's a phone app. You can send me direct messages. I see like Jack sent me a message. That's great. I can respond to you in here. It's just a nice way that hopefully we can sort of stay connected outside of class and help each other. I'm sort of thinking about this, not just me helping you, but you helping each other as well. So feel free to join that. There's a nice phone app. There's a nice web app. It's hopefully a nice way to connect outside of class. All right. I think that's most of what is on. Oh, the last thing is grade scope. We're going to talk more about this on Wednesday, and so I'll just sort of mention it here. This is how I'm going to grade things remotely. So anytime you submit a quiz or a test or your questionnaire, anything like that requires you to sort of hand it in, it's going to be handed in through this website. And the reason I use this website is because it allows me to provide nice feedback in a math setting. And so you can see, our questionnaire is going to be due on Wednesday and our quiz is going to be due on Friday. Don't worry too much about those things. We're going to go through them together during class. But just know that this is sort of where we're going to end up submitting things. My goal, or one of my plans for Wednesday, is to actually go through this together. So let's not spend too much time on that. What we're actually going to do on Wednesday, and you can see it's part of the weekly schedule. If you go back to the weekly schedule here, you see one of the homeworks is to complete the first class questionnaire, right? And then we'll submit it together on Wednesday. So I'm kind of hoping if you have some time before Wednesday, you could do that. Or again, we could do it during class. But if you go to course documents, there's a nice little questionnaire there that'll help me get to know you right here, right? First class questionnaire. It'd be great if you could download that for Wednesday. Or again, we're going to do it together on Wednesday. So don't feel like you really need to do anything yet. Right, again, lots of messages or notifications that people are joining the Slack. That's wonderful. The Slack in the way I used it last semester, and some of you were aware of this, you're having trouble with homework, you could take a screenshot, put it in the Slack, everyone can see it, I can answer that question, everyone can see my answer to that question, and then I don't have to answer it 20 times, or people can then say, oh, what about this other one? And then you can help each other, and someone can say, oh, well, I worked on that one already, here's how you should think about it. So anyway, lots of stuff going on here. This is just a brief introduction. I'm going to stop talking for a second and see if there are any questions. I've talked a lot. Anything so far? Someone pops something in the chat. You will need an access code for web work. So for web work, the way you log into web work should be the same login as gets you into Blackboard. Now, if you added the course late, like within the last couple of days, it's possible your name's not in there yet. So if you're having trouble logging into web work, just send me a message and I'll have to make sure that you're in the roster. But you can see there's 30 people on my roster already, so I think most people should be able to access it. Okay. Again, just send me a message if you can. Let me see. It was let's see if that person's in here. Yeah, so this person should be in there. Let me know, right? Your login name is the same as what gets you into Blackboard, and the password should be the same as well. Other thoughts, questions? Just saw that one in the chat. Anything so far? Okay. Just trying to think and make sure there wasn't anything else specifically I wanted to cover. Oh, I wanted to mention my office hours quick. That's something I didn't. It's going to be part of the sort of the quiz, quote unquote. But that's an important thing, actually, especially if you're someone listening to this later who's not able to attend live. So I mentioned this in my email, but my goal here is to meet remotely at 11, and then as soon as I possibly can, post the video to YouTube so that if people are available, 12:30 or 1 or 2 or something, that they can still sort of stay up with the class on the same day. And then what I'm going to do is have office hours later in the day on Monday and Wednesday, so 3:15 to 4:15, or potentially later outside of that, but trying to put it sort of at the end of the day so that hopefully by then everyone has watched the video or been to class, and if there's questions, we can sort of address them right away and not wait too long. So office hours are also going to be at this link. Everything is going to be through this Google Meet link. And then I'm also just scheduling some on Tuesday at a similar time in the afternoon, just to try to spread it across the week. But just note, it says here as well, I'm available at other times, right? I'm not doing anything. I've got the reason I'm actually teaching remote and not fully in person is because I've got a newborn at home. I'm just home with my family working. And so I've got a lot going on, but I'm at home. So if you want to pop on at night, I work evenings, most evenings, 7 or 8 to 10 p.m. If you want to pop on at night and chat, we could do that. Mornings, I'm up at 6 or 7 in the morning. If you want to be in the morning, just let me know when you want to talk. Okay, other questions? If there aren't other questions, I think I might start with some course material. So I'm just gonna, again, pause for a minute, see if anyone wants to say anything, and also make sure I said everything I wanted to say.
On Friday, you're also going to record?
Yeah, so I will also record the Friday classes and post those as well. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
But I was also asked that if you're not able to make the Friday class for some reason, and there's been, I think only one person has contacted me with a concern about that you do that ASAP. It's kind of important to me that you come if it's possible. I know it's an extenuating situation. So I can be flexible if that's an issue. Let me know. Other questions so far? Okay. The only other thing I was going to point out, I didn't go through these in detail, but the course schedule for the entire semester is also here if you wanted to sort of look ahead at things that were coming up, including when I'm hoping to have tests, for example, right? So our first test will be Friday, 2/19. That's not too far away. So just putting that in your schedule is helpful. And just due dates and classes we have off and that kind of stuff. And the other thing is the tutoring schedule, right? So we have free tutoring offered by the school, and they're still working remotely. And so feel free to get some extra help. I think that's all I really wanted to say. If there aren't any other questions, I think I'm gonna do some notes. Probably just get us set up. We'll see how it goes. No other questions so far? Okay, so the way I like to do notes is by switching my camera over to my document camera and filling out those blank notes that I mentioned previously. So it looks like this, right? Give me just a second here. I could do. And so these are the notes that I am asking you to print as soon as you can. And again, it's to help you, right? So you don't have to write this stuff down. For today, if you don't have them printed, you could take some general notes on a blank piece of paper or whatever. Or what I might suggest doing is you could just wait, not do anything, and I'm going to post these online. So then when you go and you print them all out, you could print out the completed version as well. Whatever you want to do today. But hopefully this will encourage you again to print these as soon as you can. Just trying to get set up here. Sorry, give me 1 second. Okay, cool. So I also have, I'm on this call on my iPad to try to see what it looks like. And on my computer, it looks like this whole page is visible, but on my iPad, it looks like it's not. Is it flowing over the edge of the page for anyone in your view? Or can you see both these blue lines? Anyone not see these
both blue lines?
Can anyone not see those two blue lines I'm pointing to right now? Can't see it fully. John, just curious.
I don't see the blue lines.
Do you see my finger?
No.
What are you using? Just curious. I just want to make sure everyone's able to see this stuff. Are you on a computer or?
I'm on a computer.
You're on a computer.
Yeah.
See, a couple people can't. It's strange. I don't know.
Wait, actually, I just spotlighted you and I can see it. I was using the tile thing.
Okay, yeah. So that's a good point. So when I'm exactly, you have to pin it as Harris just mentioned. When I switch over and try to do this sort of document thing, it's just my camera, and so it's not sharing the screen, so it's not going to take the screen over. And so what you would need to do is pin my screen, which my hand's floating around on it, so that it's the screen shown. Now, when you do that, are people not able to see the edges?
Yeah.
Is this okay?
Yeah, I can see now.
Okay, can anyone not see my two fingers? They're kind of on the edge of the page.
I can't. I'm on a phone.
Okay. Being on a phone is going to be challenging, I think, in general in an online course. And I should have mentioned this earlier. If someone doesn't have access to a computer or a laptop, the school has rentals or loaners that they'll loan out to you, I believe. I don't want to force anyone to do anything, but don't take an online class on your phone, I think would be a really good idea, especially if you're taking other classes. So if you want to talk about getting a loaner, let me know. I think I have a link I can send you to fill out a form for that. But do it soon so you can get on a computer. Is anyone who's on a computer not able to, or able to see that, not able to see my fingers? I apologize for this. I just want to make sure where everyone can see what I'm going to write, obviously. So John can't, but does anyone else can't? John, can you see my fingers if I move them closer? Okay. The problem is if I zoom out too much, then everyone else can't. It gets very small for other people. So what I think I'd like to do is, gotcha, at work, one-time issue. Great. I'm going to keep it the way I think it probably should be, which is approximately this. If you need help getting a computer, or if it's not a problem in the future, no problem. Any other issues seeing that? Cool. All right. So this first couple pages in this notes, if you turn the page, you'll notice that we don't actually get started with math until the next page. But I usually like to start by just thinking a little bit about, like, what are we going to look at in this course? What's the point of taking this class in general? And, it's the kind of thing that I hope sets the stage for the class, but also the kind of thing that once we start looking at material, and if things are kind of feeling like your head's spinning or something, you can come back to this and think, like, what are we doing again? What is the point? And hopefully that'll help guide you back into the right mindset. So, sorry, let me just get my note out here. So there's basically, as I think about it, two ways to think about a phenomenon. And when I say phenomenon, I mean something related to your own major, right? A lot of people in this class end up being like bio majors, or maybe you're in business or physics or some other major, and you want to think about something in your own major, whatever that is. Can I just ask too before we get too far? Is it like super choppy? Are you able to hear me okay? I just worry about my internet connection sometimes.
I can hear
Like
you fine.
Everyone's okay, and I move my
You're
pen
good.
around.
You're good.
Okay, cool. Thank you. I think once we get started, it'll be a little more natural. I just want to make sure everyone's good. Okay, everyone can hear. Great. So anyway, when I say like some phenomena, think about something in your own major. Like if you're a business major, maybe you care about the stock market or profits or something, or if you're in biology, you care about some population that you want to grow, right? Something you're interested in. There's two ways to think about whatever it is that's in your brain right now that interests you. You can think about it quantitatively or qualitatively, right? And a lot of times in many majors, we think about things qualitatively. We make observations, we describe things using words. When I think about this in a science class, I think about someone out, taking notes in the woods of some population or something, right? So you write things down. But in math, a lot of the time, we think about things quantitatively. And it's not just math. There's certainly lots of other quantitative things in all other majors. And that's a lot of the times why people are in this course, because you want to have some kind of quantitative basis to help you with your own major, right? And so it's quantitatively, it's more about using numbers in our data and thinking about functions and math, right? And so in calculus, we're going to think about things from that point of view, right? From the quantitative point of view. And usually, once we have enough information about something, we create a mathematical model about it. And so in this class, I always come back to mathematical models that describe situations. So for example, it could be a population model or a profits model or something that we really care about, right? Some function that describes something we care about. Now, to sort of define that a little more, it says what a model is in detail right here. A mathematical model is a description of a system using mathematical concepts and language. And most of the time, especially in this class, we're going to be thinking about models that are functions. Okay? Now, a function, if you remember back to your pre-calc, some of you guys, I was just teaching functions, what a function was in my pre-calc class. A function is a rule that assigns to each element, x, which comes from the domain, exactly one element f of x, which is in the range, right? And so it's like we plug things into them. Most of the time we think about those as x values, and something comes out. Most of the time we think about those as y values, right? So these range are oftentimes y values. And again, the functions we're going to be thinking about in this class are going to have, most of the time, trying to make them have some kind of hypothetical meaning. Sometimes they're actually real functions, but at least we'll be thinking about them hypothetically as something we care about. Again, right? Think about profits or some population or disease spread or something like that. But before we kind of start using functions, let's just remind ourselves exactly what they are. So I love these little like TV-looking boxes or whatever that oftentimes people use to represent functions. So let's look at a real simple function. Right? F of x equals 2x plus 3. This function is a straight line, right? When you plug an x into it, you multiply it by 2, and then you add 3 to that result, and then that becomes the output, right? And so you can certainly plug numbers or letters or anything you want into the function, right? And so if this is our function f inside the box, you take x values from the domain, right? You stick them into f. Something happens to them. In this case, multiply by 2, add 3. And what comes out is the output value. And that's going to be in the range. Right? And again, you can kind of think about this as like, obviously, x is an x value. But the thing I want to clarify, sometimes people get confused about what f of x is. F of x is a y value. Right? It's an output. So even though it says, f of x, so it looks like there's an x in it, it's really a y value. It's the function value when you plug x in, right? And so really simply, if you plug the number 2 and you plugged it into the function 2x plus 3, right? Multiplies by 2, adds 3, and a 7 comes out. Very, very straightforward. And again, if this is something we cared about, maybe it's like after 2 years, there's going to be 7 animals or something like that. But the point is you plugged an x in and you got a y out, right? And the thing we learned about in pre-calculus that I'll just kind of remind you is the definition of a function means there's only one thing that comes out. You can't have 2 things come out. It's got to be just 7 that comes out when you plug a 2 in, right? That's the only thing that can produce a 7. That's sort of the general idea. But again, you can plug like anything you want into them, right? You can plug the number pi in, right? If you plug the pi into the function 2x plus 3, it would become 2 pi plus 3. Oops, that should be a pi. And we could get an approximation for that if we wanted to. But I'm just trying to point out that we can plug any kind of number into them. Or the thing we also looked at in pre-calc is you can plug other variables into them, right? So you could plug like a plus h into this function, right? We looked at that in pre-calc, and that would look like this. And we'll look more at that later. I know we looked at that in pre-calc, but that's something that's going to come into play in calculus as well. So again, just kind of thinking about reminding you what a function is and previewing how we're going to use it. And when you think about sort of collecting up all the possible outputs, that creates the graph, right? So the graph of a function, if we're actually going to write down what it looked like, that would be all the ordered pairs that are of the form input output, right? So like this is just a straight line. So if we were going to graph that function, it would be very easy to do. It's got a y-intercept of 3. It's got a slope of 2, and so it'd be something like that. But what I'm trying to say is, and the thing that sometimes people forget or lose sight of, is when you write down a graph like that and you write the line, it's just collecting up all these possible outputs and just plotting them and connecting the dots, right? It's one way to think about that. All right. Thoughts about that so far? Questions there at all? Okay. All righty. So, what do we do with functions? Well, here's a couple hypothetical scenarios that we'll look at kind of similar functions to these throughout the course. So I'm going to think about 3 hypothetical functions. One's going to be q, one's going to be g, one's going to be w. And then we'll think about the kinds of things we can do with those functions. So let's say q of t represents the quantity, so that's where q comes from, of some drug in the bloodstream t minutes after taking it. So let's say you take some Advil. It takes a while to start working in your body, and q tells you how much has actually been absorbed after some amount of time. Let's let g of o be the price of gas given the current oil price, right? So we want to know how much we're going to have to pay for gas. Well, that depends on the oil price. And so g of o would tell us gas price depending on how much oil is. And let's let w of r be the number of wolves in a forest depending on the number of rabbits that exist, right? Because so wolves eat rabbits. The more rabbits there are, the more wolves there are. And so that depends on, w depends on r. So one kind of question that we might care about is something that happens at some specific point of time, right? Knowing what happens at a point of interest. So for example, using the drug example I just said, you've got a real bad headache. You just took some Advil. How long is it going to take to work, right? And so you might want to know, like, I took Advil 30 minutes ago. You might want to know how much is in my bloodstream now. How long is it going to take to work? And, you know, that's something doctors really care about. If someone's in the hospital and they want to know when their drug that they gave them is going to start to work, they have some functions that tell them that. It usually depends on things like body weight and maybe metabolism, things like that. But the thing I'm trying to point out here is this is at some specific point in time, right? At 30 minutes, when what's going on. That's different than this next question, which is what happens way down the line in the long run. So, for example, let's think about the wolf example, we might want to know how many wolves could possibly ever exist. So how many wolves could there ever be out there? And so if wolves are a function of rabbits, we would want to make rabbits really, really big and see how many wolves could respond from that, right? And so just to kind of think about how we would answer these first two questions, because these two questions are kind of similar to each other. Let me actually ask you guys, if we had a function that told us Q of t, you plug in t and it tells you the quantity of some drug, in this case Advil, in your bloodstream. If we wanted to know, if we had that function and we wanted to know how much Advil was in there 30 minutes later, what would we do practically? What would be the operation we did? Thoughts? We have some function, it tells us the quantity. We want to know what it is at 30. What would we do?
Set t to 30.
Yeah, just plug in t of 30, right? So let t equal 30. Just plug it in to q, right? That would tell us exactly what we wanted to know. And thinking about how many wolves could possibly exist, we would want to let the rabbits go to infinity. So this is some notation we'll see. You can actually see it right down to the bottom of the page here. We'll see that notation in just a second. This means let R get really big. Let the number of rabbits go to infinity. And so to kind of summarize those two things, both of these kind of questions are limit questions. And so that's the first thing we're going to learn. You can see that's literally the next topic at the bottom of the page here, limits and continuity, chapter 1, right? And so limit questions sort of help us think about either what's happening at a specific point or what happens in the long run, right? Those are limit type questions. Now, eventually, what we end up doing after we understand limits in the first chapter or two is we use that to build towards other things, like these two other examples. So the third one says, both of the previous things can be posed as rate of change questions. So, for example, we might be in some industry that really depends on gas. Like, let's say we have a bunch of trucks that are in our business and we fill them up with gas all the time, right? So it's important for us to know how the price of gas is changing. Is it getting more expensive or less expensive over time? Because if you need to fill up 100 trucks with gas and the price is going up, you would want to fill them up like right away. But if the price is going down, maybe you would want to wait a little bit to fill them up because you'll end up saving money. So you might want to, if you really care about gas in your industry, you would want to know how it's changing, right? And so we think about how things are changing using derivatives. And so that's going to be the next chapter. So I don't know, I can't remember if it's chapter 2 or not, but the second part of the course tells us about derivatives. And we use limits to derive limits, derive derivatives. That's unfortunate that derive and derivatives kind of look the same, but limits sort of lead us to derivatives is one way to say that. And then the last thing we're going to study is how we sort of think about total amounts. So an example of total amounts that we might be interested in is like, well, let's say over the course of an entire day, we took Advil, how much was absorbed by our body over the entire day or something like that, right? So like, how much, I should say. Let me just write that out. How much Advil is absorbed by the body over, say, a 24-hour period. Right? That's different than the first question we thought about, which is what's happening at 30 minutes. That's saying like, well, over an entire day, how would that work, right? And so we would answer a question like that using integrals. And so that's the last thing we look at. And also, so this is like end of Calc 1 is integrals. If you're going to keep going into Calc 2 really starts getting into integrals. So we kind of usually introduce the idea of integrals in Calc 1, and then it really gets explored in depth in Calc 2. Okay. Questions? I think there's one other thing I wanted to say in terms of the course structure that it kind of just struck me. I forgot to mention it before. But usually in these 4-credit classes, there's 2 75-minute periods and 1 50-minute period. If you've taken pre-calc or something like that, that's usually the structure. And so the Friday class is going to be a 75-minute period. And so that means, you know, between Monday and Wednesday, we should have 75 plus 50 minutes sort of total. My goal is just to sort of play it by ear. Like we've done a little bit more. We've done 55 minutes today. And this feels like a good stopping point. But my goal here is to kind of like have one period be a little bit shorter, but still be available during the rest of the period for questions. You know what I mean? So like I won't force people to stay on after some point, but then I'll say, do people have homework questions? And then it's a good time to like address questions together is kind of what I'm saying, because presumably you have this time in your schedule. So I think for right now, I'm going to stop here because this next part of the notes is the first actual math notes. And I'd like to give people a chance to print these. So I've kind of finished my intro, and we'll start with the first actual math notes on Wednesday. And I'm hoping by then you'll be able to print these out. So can I answer any questions about anything I've said so far about this sort of intro? Again, these sort of 4 questions lead us through the different topics we're going to look at and how we can think about these same functions just sort of in different ways and learn different things about them depending on what we care about. And we'll start right with limits on Wednesday. But again, are there questions before we do that? Can I clarify anything? Answer any questions about anything right now? All right. And let me just sort of finish by saying, people who are watching this video later, again, I'm looking to meet with people who are not here. So everyone who's here and is listening to me right now, you're good till Wednesday. Try to do those things. If you're listening to this video later, I want to meet with you and figure out how to best make you successful this semester. And I really hope on Wednesday that everyone might feel comfortable turning their cameras on, but reach out to me if you're someone who doesn't. All right, I'm going to stop recording so that this starts to save, and I'm going to post it online. I'm also going to hang around to see if people have any questions. All right, thanks so much, guys.